Welcome to Spectral Shadows. This is the place where the stories don't just haunt your mind, they follow you into the dark. Before the whispers begin, tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it? Midnight? Or closer to the hour when shadows move on their own? If you're brave enough to continue, prove it. Like this video, subscribe to Spectral Shadows and leave a comment with your time and location, so we'll know exactly where to find you. Now, let's open the door to tonight's nightmare. Story number 1. 2006, Calgary, Alberta. My crew and I had received a phone call from an Edmonton resident from in the west side of the city, complaining about the bizarre amount of screaming that can be heard in her neighborhood. She said that there was an old condemned hospital near where she lived. She then went on about how people say that it's just crackheads and homeless people screaming, but it all seemed a little off. She asked us if we could do some research on the Charles Camsell Hospital. Little came up. Abandoned in 1996 due to asbestos. The movie White Coats was filmed there in 2004, so I thought to myself, if there's a movie that was shot there 2 years ago, it's probably not that bad. But then I started to Google the place, and dozens of stories started popping up. This began to gain my attention as I started learning more and more about its dark past. The hospital had a sterilization section that looked like it was straight out of 28 Weeks Later. I then consulted with the team, and we decided to take a look at the place. 2006, Edmonton, Alberta. After painful negotiations, the property owner at the time agreed that he would give us 2 hours to explore floors 2 and 3 of the hospital. Apparently the basements have been flooded, so they were really our only option. At around 11:00 p.m., the 3 of us were escorted by 2 outdoor security guards into one of the garages in the side of the building. They then explained to us that this is the only entrance into the building because the rest of the doorways have been sealed with barbed wire to keep the homeless population out. I then thought about how the old lady mentioned that there were screams coming from the hospital. If the place was sealed with barbed wire, how could anybody have gotten inside? One of the security guards said, "Check out the north wing. That's my favorite place," as he winked. I started getting pretty nervous as we approached the door to the main hallway. This was where the security left us. There was nothing in the rooms. Everything had been disposed of, just pipes and electrical wiring here and there. There was graffiti littered all over the floors and walls. There was just your typical messages. 666. I'm going to murder you. Leave us alone. Leave. Just your typical abandoned place nonsense. Our crew decided to stick together the entire time, since we didn't know the area very well. Floor 2. As I walked up the staircase, I felt chills run down my back for no apparent reason. The place wasn't really that scary. It looked as it could open tomorrow, minus the vandalism. Josh, one of the crew members, began telling me that he felt as if the doorways were shrinking. I never saw that, though. What I did see was what looked like blood in one of the rooms. We went and checked it out, and we couldn't tell if it was blood or smeared paint, but it had that metallic smell that blood gives off. Stephen, my other crew member, said we should get out of here and report it to the owner, but I said not until we check out the north side. We climbed up the next set of stairs and walked to the north side of the hospital. If I make any spelling mistakes here, it's because I don't want to proofread this. I don't want to relive this next part ever again in my fucking life. Floor 3 is when we began to hear the cry of babies and women. As we got closer to the north wing, it seemed like screaming, louder and louder and louder. My crew wanted to leave, but I was so curious what lies in the north wing. When we came to its doors, We decided that we were going to have a safe word, and if anyone said the safe word, we would all run back to the north wing doorway to safety. Our safe word was, monkey piss. We all took a deep breath and began to explore. It seemed just like the other floor except for the occasional scream or cry of an infant. I came across a sign on a doorway that made me fucking chill to the bone. This was, in fact, the maternity ward. We all heard a voice crying for help. Being really fucking careless, we decided to follow the voice. We were led into a massive foyer. I thought I saw a pile of people in the middle, but as I got closer, I could make out that they were, in fact, mannequins, all with bleeding eyes. I then thought, this is some stupid joke the security guards pulled on us. And we all began to laugh. Then we heard a loud, high-pitched voice scream, "Who are you laughing at?" Then the pile of mannequins set on fire, which turned into a massive inferno. Stephen then screamed, "Monkey piss! Motherfucking monkey piss!" And we booked it to the north wing entrance. When we all met up, we vaulted it out of the hospital as fast as we could. Once we got out of the hospital, we continued to run onto the field, facing the hospital. We then collapsed and watched the fire engulf the 3rd and 4th floors. It wasn't long until firefighters were on the scene. They couldn't enter the building because of all the barbed wire, so it looked like a difficult fire to fight. You could hear screams of women and children coming from the place as it burnt. The voices soon after began to turn demonic. One of the firefighters even asked the owner if there were people inside. When the owner found us in the field, he began freaking out. We explained to him what happened, and he said the mannequins were on the 5th floor last time he checked. He then said he would cover the story up, saying it was a demolition malfunction, and as you would imagine, authorities believed him. The fire went out after a few hours, leaving the maternity ward charred and covered in ash. I've never even returned to Edmonton since then. Even though it's a massive place with a population of 1 million people, it's too horrific to believe that the hospital still stands to this day, gazing over the city. Demolition malfunction, my ass. Story number 2. I am a nurse at the largest hospital in my city. Although I work on several units, I am most often on the oncology and palliative care unit. For those that do not know, oncology focuses on the treatment and care of those with cancer, and palliative care is for people who are imminently dying and require symptom management interventions. With this in mind, I have been present in the final moments of many people's lives. I consider it an honor to assist others in dying with comfort and dignity, and it is very rewarding work. However, there have been several instances when the proximity of death has brought about some unexplainable events. One particular instance that comes to mind happened in my first year of the profession. This patient had already died in the evening. Their family members had left the hospital, and the body had been cleaned and dressed. It was now nighttime, around 2300 hours, and I was performing my routine paperwork while awaiting the porter for transport to the morgue. It was very quiet, and the other patients on the floor had settled for the time being. The only noise was the hushed conversation between the other nurses and I, the clicking of various instruments in patient rooms, and the constant rumbling of the building around us. A call bell chimed at the monitor on the nursing station. I will explain now that the call bell system enables someone in a patient room to push a button on the bed, which is connected to the wall, which sends a signal to a monitor at the station. There are several buttons available, including emergent, but those are not reachable from the bed and are instead on the wall. The station monitor displays the room number and the nature of the call bell, regular or emergency, along with the designated chime based on that nature. Slow, relaxed beeps for a regular bell, rapid, intense beeping for bathroom bells, bed exit alarms, and emergency codes. A light above the door of the patient's room will become illuminated. It was not uncommon by any means to hear a call bell, considering the 30-odd patients on our side of the unit. It wasn't even unusual that the call bell was coming from the recently deceased patient S room, because the porter often will press the bell to notify the nurse of their arrival. What was surprising, however, was when I entered the room, there was not a living person there, as I expected. The room remained as I had previously left it. Low lights, curtains drawn, body in a casual supine position with the wrists crossed over the waist. Had I mistaken which room had called? I peeked above the door and the light was illuminated. I thought it was strange, but sometimes these systems glitch. Alarm silenced, I returned to my desk. Approximately half an hour later, the bell was rung again. As before, I assumed it was the porter. And again, the room was unchanged with no porter present. I was a little frustrated, as I wholeheartedly believed that the call bell was malfunctioning. I even checked that the body S shoulders were not accidentally pressing the button on the inside of the side rails. But they were not. To prevent the button from being pressed, I disconnected the cord that associated the bed to the system in the wall. It sounded a cord fault alarm, which I quickly silenced both in the room and at the station monitor. The porter would just have to come to the nursing station when they arrived. Just as I was continuing my tasks, the insistent and recognizable bed exit alarm sounded. These alarms are based on weight and are set directly onto the bed. When weight is removed from the bed, the alarm trips to notify the nurse that a patient is getting out of bed when they should not be. Normally, these alarms, like all others, will be displayed on the call bell monitor at the station. Alongside this, the bed itself will emit a loud alarm. At this time, there was no alarm on the monitor, but I could hear the buzzer coming from down the hall. I rushed to the sound, expecting to find a patient halfway out of bed, asking for the bathroom. Instead, my heart began to sink as I realized the sound was coming from the dead patient S room. The body was perfectly still in the same position. The alarm was loud enough to make my ears ring. Because I had disconnected the cord from the wall, the alarm had not gone to the station monitor. But I do not remember setting the bed alarm at all. There was no need to, as the patient was deceased. Perhaps I had forgotten to turn it off. Either way, there was no reason the alarm should be sounding. The patient, obviously, had not moved and remained in bed. At this point, I was officially creeped out. It is in my nature to trust science above anything supernatural, and I am not a believer in souls or spirits. However, being in a room with an unanimated body is a very moving experience. Although they may not have their physical energy or liveliness, a sort of awe-striking presence can be felt. It felt as though something remained in that room, and it begged for my attention. I took several minutes of silence, just taking some deep breaths and watching the chest of the patient. There was no movement, no breathing, no signs of life remaining. I gently patted the presenting hand on the waist. It was cold and bony, and I could tell her limbs were beginning to stiffen. I left the room once more. The porter arrived about 5 minutes later, and I assisted them in placing the body on the stretcher and applying the drape. I then called a housekeeper to clean the room, and within an hour a new patient was being admitted. The other nurses had commented on how weird those alarms were, but what truly got to me in the end was the remarks of the new room's occupant. This person was fully lucid and oriented, with no inclination towards confusion or delirium. They asked me point blank if anyone had died in their room recently. I asked why. They then proceeded to say, it was an elderly Asian woman, wasn't it? And she died of lung cancer. I didn't know how to respond to that description, as it was accurate to the body that I previously mentioned. The patient must have read my surprise and nonchalantly said, "Very well. Can you at least open the window for the poor woman?" I did as was requested and never heard about it again. I have had several other experiences that gave me goosebumps, but this is one of the most vivid I can recall. Story number 3. Hi. I've never submitted anything to this site before, and I'm using someone's account in order to do so here. I considered writing it for my regular medical blog, but somehow this doesn't fit on there. Firstly, because I'm not supposed to post personal casework on it, and secondly, it just doesn't seem like something that would be appropriate purely from a medical standpoint. Okay, you're probably wondering when I'm going to get to the point, so here goes. I'm a psychiatric doctor, and I always wanted to study human behavior ever since I was a little girl. Most other girls my age were into makeup, Barbie dolls, and fashion. I was always more fascinated by studying the darker side of human nature, with documentaries, books, and as many medical journals as I could get my young hands on. I was different. It was kind of fate that I'd end up in this profession. After many years spent at medical school, I wanted to specialize in mental health and the many disorders that we know about, and some that have only recently been discovered, even though they've always been around. One of my many training experiences was to sit in on interviews with people having mental episodes or who had been flagged up as having possible MH issues. These were useful and illuminating. I see a lot written down and broadcast on television shows that really hurt the plight of people suffering with mental disorders. Words like psycho or whack job really make me cringe, as do portrayals of people with things like multiple personality disorder being serial killers. It's a complete false depiction, and the facts show that the overwhelming number of people with such afflictions are not violent. Anyway, I digress. I graduated, I got all my qualifications, and I began work as a psychiatric specialist 8 years ago. I had to put up with some sexism to get to the top, but I did it. I take pride that I managed to shove a whole load of misogyny up its own toxic asshole. I take even more pride, though, that I have managed to help dozens of people suffering from the worst kind of mental issues. Unfortunately, we can't help all people, and some, tragically, are beyond any help and have to be committed for the rest of their lives. Thankfully, that's not too many these days. We've come a long way with respecting people with mental health problems, and we have better ways of treating people and managing conditions than ever before. It is my belief that we will continue to progress in this area. Hi. Back to the subject matter of this post. A lot of my work involves building up relationships with people who are proving difficult to diagnose or to communicate with. This can take years, sometimes. The longest such case took me 5 years. This case involved a man in his late 20s who had killed his infant son before being sent to psychiatric care after being found unfit to stand trial. He believed he had been possessed by a demon who had haunted him since he played with an Ouija board in high school. He said he had managed to resist doing the more harmful stuff this demon was telling him to do for a few years. But when he got married and had a child, he said he'd have periods where he would black out and the demon would take over. This is an absolute no-no, but I'm going to use the power of anonymity to publish a little excerpt from one of our one-on-ones after I reviewed the tapes I still have. Me. Good morning. XXXXX. How are you feeling today? Patient. Not good. I'll never feel good again. If I could, I'd have offed myself ages ago, but you guys won't let me. Me. We don't want you to harm yourself. We're here to help. Patient. Will your help bring back my boy? Me. Sadly, no. Patient. Well then. Me. But neither would killing yourself. Patient. It'd stop me feeling like shit every waking second of my life. Those people out there, the ones demanding I get tortured and the death penalty, and every other horror you could think of. I'm on their fucking side, you know. I want anyone who did that to a little boy strung up and taken out. That would be justice, right? Me. Would it? I'm against the death penalty. Patient. And you obviously don't have kids. Me. No, I don't, you're right. Patient. If you did, you'd know. Me. It took you years to even acknowledge that your boy was gone. We're making progress, even if it doesn't feel like that to you. Your anger, your hatred of yourself, that's natural. You didn't always have that. You weren't always acting natural. Patient. You're right. It doesn't feel like progress. Me. I don't expect it to. With what's happened in your life, you can't expect to have a couple of therapy sessions, then life can go back to normal. I'm afraid it doesn't work that way. Patient. Therapy? That's what you call this. I call it making me relive the worst day of my fucking life over and over again, so you and your doctor friends can get your kicks and maybe some kind of award from your medical friends at Nutjob Monthly. Me. Now XXXXXXX. That's not very fair. Patient. Life isn't fair. Tell my son that. Patient starts weeping. Me. You don't have to talk. We can end this session now. Would you like me to call the orderly? Patient. I'm still going to feel shit, whether I'm behind this desk or locked in my cell. I may as well play along. Fuck it. Me. Okay. But only if you're comfortable with going ahead. Patient nodded. Me. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most, how bad have your encounters with it been this last month? Patient. It? You mean that satanic fucker that's haunted me most of my life? Me. Yes. Patient. 1. Actually, I'd say 0. Me. So you've had no visions, no voices, no blackouts? Patient. No. They got less and less frequent after the death of my son. Me. I know this is a sensitive subject, and tell me if you're not comfortable continuing at any point. Would you say that your son was a focal point of its activity? Patient. I would. When I was a teenager, it was just appearing in the corner of my eye, or making me think about cutting myself. Things of that nature. Me. Did it ever speak to you directly, like we're doing right now? Patient. I know you think I'm a psycho, right? Me. I think you're a troubled man, XXXX. I'm just trying to help us both understand more what lies behind that trouble. Patient. Trouble? You make it sound like a debt I can't pay, or a flat tire when I need to start a journey. Me. I don't mean to trivialize things. Patient. Despite all the pills, the doctors, the hospitals, the tests, I know something real was going on. Something big, something fucked up. Me. You must have been terrified. Patient. At some points, I was. It went from mischievous thoughts to thoughts of harming myself to thoughts of hurting others. It seemed so appealing when she talked to me. Me. She? Patient. I've probably said too much. Me. You're in total control here. XXXXXX. You can't say too much or too little. Patient. Well, I've gone this far. Yes, she. The demon thing was definitely female. Me. Did she have a face? Patient. Not always. Like to begin with, it was a voice in my ear when no one else was around. Sometimes it wouldn't be a voice. It'd be a thought that I'd never ever think of by myself. Then later on, I'd be in a place or doing something that I couldn't remember actually setting up. Me. So it was a female voice? Was it always the same voice? Patient. Oh yes, that same gentle voice, like a young woman. Me. And when you did see her, did she look like a young woman? Patient. Yeah, a young face anyway. Me. You just used to see her face. Patient. This is fucked up. Me. What is? Patient. She appeared as a nun. Me. Okay. Did you have an aversion to nuns at the time? Patient. A what? Me. I mean, did you have a fear of nuns or anti-religious feelings? Patient. Not really. I didn't give a shit about religious things in general. Still don't. Me. So this wasn't like a subconscious thing that your mind had latched onto? Patient. No, she was just there. She was real, damn it. Me. Okay. I'm just trying to go through all possibilities. Patient. You can go through whatever psych mumbo-jumbo you want, lady. This bitch was real. She killed my son. Me. How often would she appear to you? Patient. First few years, not much. When I got married, she was in the back of my mind more often. When my son was born, she was constantly there, to the point I couldn't ignore her like I'd been doing. Me. When did she first appear to you? Patient. First time I messed with one of those Ouija boards. Me. That same night? Patient. Yeah. Me. Was she always evil? Patient. At first she was just there, like in the corner of a room or when I looked in a mirror. When I started ignoring her, that's when the whispering in my ear would happen. That was harder to ignore. Me. She was persistent, patient, very. Used to make me feel worthless or like I'd need to acknowledge her or something bad would happen. Me. And something bad did happen. Patient. Yay. Weeping again. Me. What kind of things did she ask you to do? Patient. She didn't really ask me. She would whisper things like to set something on fire or take vengeance on someone who'd wronged me. She had a real thing on vengeance and justice. Me. But you never acted on her words. Patient. No. Sometimes I'd light fires in woods when I found myself in them. She liked fires, but I'd never harm someone. Even when I felt I'd die if I didn't do what she wanted. She used to get angry with me. That's when I'd hurt myself. I could be in real pain, but I'd have to do it. It was the only way I could ignore it. Patient. No. Me. Was there anyone you could talk to about her? Patient. If it was happening to you, would you want to tell anyone? Me. You'd be surprised at how many doctors and therapists would listen. Patient. I'd still be called a psycho case. Just you guys do it in your notes behind my back. Me. I have never used that term about you or anyone I've worked with. Patient. Whatever. Me. It's true. So back to my question. You didn't have anyone you could talk to. Patient. No. Me. What about the people you did the Ouija board with? Did anything weird happen with any of them? They have pretty normal lives. I guess I was the chosen one, huh? Me. Did she ever call you that? Patient. No. She never actually called me anything. She was just in my mind, slowly controlling me. Me. It got progressively worse. Patient. Over time, she was pure evil. I'm glad I never see her anymore. Me. I'll say. Patient. Do you believe me? Me. I'm not dismissing anything, no. Patient. I guess that's as good as I'll get from anyone in this place. But she's real. She ain't finished yet. I just know it. If not with me, she'll get someone else. Me. Was she haunting anyone else before you? Patient. I don't know. She had a list of victims that she said she needed to bring justice to. Always with the religious words, too. Had a thing for blood sacrifice, repentance, and confession. All that shit. Me. Was the list of victims all people you knew? Patient. How the fuck do I know who was on her list? Me. So it wasn't a physical list or something she told you about? Patient. No, she just told me about it. Said a couple of names I knew were on it, but I don't know. Do otherworldly beings have pens and paper? Me. I guess not. But they may have nuns' outfits. Patient. Don't be fucking funny. This shit is real. I lost my son, my mind, my life to this bitch. If you mock her, maybe she'll get you. Then you'll be the one sitting in a crazy house answering stupid fucking questions. Me. Sorry. I didn't mean to sound flippant. I was just wondering out loud why a demon would have use for a human form, especially one in a religious dress. Patient. She also had a thing for respect, too. She wouldn't like it when I called her a demon, or when I told her constantly to fuck off. Me. Did you have a certain name to call her? Patient. Looked really worried at this point. Don't make me say it. Me. Her name? Patient. Oh no, please don't. Not now. Me. Okay, we won't go there. You say she had certain rituals. Patient. Crying. She made me put this old leather book under people's beds. Me. What old book was it? Patient. Some confession book or whatever. Me. Was it your own book? Patient. No. Fuck no. I woke up in this old church building one day. Must have been after one of my blackouts. She was in my head telling me to take the book from the altar. Anything to shut her up. Me. And where did you keep this book? Patient. That's just it. I didn't keep it. I'd have blackouts and wake up in people's houses with her telling me to place it under their beds. It was fucked up, sure, but if I did it, she'd leave me alone for a while. Me. And you have no memory of getting into those houses or taking the book back? Patient. No, I was just there. You know I used to black out. It must be in your notes. Me. Yes, we know you used to black out. Tell me, XXXXX, do you know where that book is now? Patient. I never tell my secrets. Me. You don't? Patient. You think you're a good person, don't you? Me. I'm not the judge of that. Patient. Only he knows whose soul is ready. Me. He? Okay. Who am I talking with right now? Patient. You don't know, do you? Me. Pressing the panic button under the table for help. No, please tell me. Patient. Laughing. You aren't ready for me, doctor. Not yet, but soon. You'll be ready for Sheba. The patient lunged at me across the table, screaming while trying to strangle me, just as the help came through the door, dragging the patient off me. Interview was suspended. Unfortunately, that particular patient couldn't be helped any further and regressed to a shell of a man, refusing to eat and rocking on the floor in his room. Now, after reading through that transcript, you may have been under the impression that was the disturbing interview I mentioned in the title. It wasn't. The most disturbing one I had came 6 months after that incident. It involved a 10-year-old girl whose parents had died in a house fire that police had determined was started by the little girl. She was brought under our care as a possible mental health case after police reports and many psychiatric evaluations. Me. Hi, XXXX. Her. Hello, miss. I remember you. Me. That's right. We've spoken several times, haven't we? Her. Yeah, you're nice. You get me orange juice and candy. Me. Guess what? Her. What? Me. I've sneaked in some candy right now. Her. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Me. That's okay, sweetheart. Now, I was wondering if you had some time to talk to me or do any more drawings. Her. I like drawing. Me. What's your favorite thing to draw? Her. The sea and ponies. I like ponies. Me. Do you want to draw me one now? Her. Can I draw something different? Me. Of course. Anything you want. Her. Pausing. Anything? Me. Yes. Her. I don't want to draw that. Me. Draw what? Her. She says I have to draw my mommy and daddy, but they aren't here anymore because of the fire. She starts sobbing. Me. Who is saying that, sweetie? Her. The lady in black. She always stands in the corner of the rooms here. She whispers to me. I didn't used to like her, but I think she's nice. She's told me she's left a gift for you at your home. Me. Can you draw her? Her. You said I could draw anything? Me. Yes, of course you can. Her. I want to draw a pony. Me. Okay, draw a pony. Draw a pony at the seaside. Her. Yay. I thought nothing more about the mysterious lady the girl mentioned until I got home. At night, I headed upstairs to go to sleep. My cats, as usual, were taking up the bed. I shooed them off so I could get into bed after a long day. In moving the covers, I knocked my glasses from the bedside table to the floor. I bent down to pick them up. That's when I noticed the object under my bed. It was an old black leather-bound book with a golden cross embossed on the front. Underneath that, there was a child's drawing of a pony at the seaside. You've reached the end, but the shadows haven't left you. If this story unsettled you, prove you survived. Like this video, subscribe to Spectral Shadows, and leave a comment with the part that haunted you most. The darkness is always waiting, and so are we. Until next time, don't turn off the lights.